And here we are, we're back again to teach you some mathematicals. Today is graphing linear equations. You might have seen this a couple hundred million times. Y equals mx plus b. That's just a bunch of letters. I know, it's annoying. But the blue M is actually your rate or slope. Or in real life, it's like you're getting paid $10 an hour. That's your rate, that's your slope. How much you're getting per whatever. And then the other part is y-intercept. I like to call it the initial amount, or where you start at. I start with the rock. I'm going to drive to the hole and pass to him. Look at that. That's a no look. We had eye contact. You've seen that. He can pass it to me. I'd still catch it just because I'm looking at you. Not him in the camera, but you get what I'm saying. All right, so we're going to graph. Here's our first example. So the y-intercept, it's not always the second number. It's going to be your constant. We talked about that before. It's the number that is just a number. No variable with it. So in this case, it is positive 3. Plus 3, positive 3. So to graph this, we're going to start on the y-axis. That's your up and down one. At positive 3. We're going to put our first point right there. Let's show. Uno, dos, tres. Right there. Let's make it blue. I forgot what to do. So there's your y-intercept. That's the only purpose for that number right there. It tells me where I started. So if this was a bank account, I had $3 in it to start with. So now I'm done with that 30. I'm going to erase it. It's in my way for graphing. So the other part of the equation is the slope, which is, in this case, already a fraction, which is good for us, because it separates it into a top and bottom, numerator, denominator. So the top half tells us how much we're going up or down, and the bottom half tells us right or left.
So y'all probably have heard rise over run, right?
Oh, I hated that. I didn't understand it. It's done. But this time we're going up, or are we going down? That's the other thing people get confused on. I like to view it as always going to the right. And if it's positive, that's how many I'm going up. The top's going to tell me I'm going up 1 and right 2. So from my start, I'm going up 1 and right 2 spaces. Put my next dot. It's kind of like that's where I drove my car. I was here, I went up a block, and then over 2 more. You just keep doing this pattern. Up a block, down a block, or a couple blocks. Can we do the opposite? Yeah. We can go down and left 2. Still makes a straight line. Down 1, left 2. And you can do this as many times as your teacher wants you to, because that's what you're all trying to do, is just to make them happy so you can get that grade. So I don't care as long as I can see that you know this pattern and you have graphed it correctly.
One thing to point out too, guys, if your slope is positive, that's a positive 1/2, then your line is going to be positive. See how it's going up and to the right. So if it's a positive slope, you're going to have a positive line. Let's try another one.
If you get confused if it should be going up and right or up and left, just think of how you read something. There's some words. I read from here to over there. So if this is the first word, it's going up. So it's kind of like how you read something. The next example will be y equals negative 3
Negative.
is x plus uno.
I'm going to pass Mr. Greg the rock.
Oh!
He caught it, I promise. Oh, he caught it. So, y equals negative 3/5 x plus 1. So again, let's try to start with our y-intercept, or our starting amount, right? The number, in this case, it's the one on the far right again. Doesn't always have to be over there. But the 1 doesn't have a letter or a variable next to it. So we're going to start at positive 1 on the y-axis, right? So here at positive 1, we'll make our first point, right? So we don't need the 1 anymore. Now again, this time, like we talked about a second ago, our slope. In this case, it's a negative 3/5, a negative 3/5. So we should kind of be telling ourselves, okay, that's a negative slope, so a negative line. So it's not going to look like the other one. it's not going to be going upwards from left to right. This one's probably going to be going downwards, right? So we got to be thinking of that before we start making our points. So in this case, negative 3/5. So to make a negative line, I'm going to go down 3, so 1, 2, 3, and to the right 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you might say, well, Coach Ramsey, it's a negative. Why did you go right? Well, if we would have went down and then left, that's going to make a positive line. We don't want that. So I went down 3 and right 5. Now I could have went up 3 and left 5. You guys see how that still makes a negative line, right? It still has a negative slope. So you can see the difference, right? This line is falling from left to right. It's negative.
I agree 100%. This shirt makes my butt look big. So I like to view negative 3/5 as just a negative 3 over a positive 5. And that kind of goes back to what he's saying. If these are both negative, a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So there goes my ball. Good job, Coach Ramsey. So this one I want you to attempt. We're not going to go over it. We're just going to draw it for you real quick.
So when he finishes writing, click pause. See if you guys can do it on your own.
4/3 x minus 2. And now I'm going to draw it. Start at negative 2. Because that's our y-intercept. Done with it. 4/3 is the slope. So from here up 4 blocks. Positive right.
That slope is positive.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Should be a straight line. You can go on forever. All right.
Perfect.
So this is a basic kind. This is where it's already set up as a fraction. So these next examples, it's not going to be a fraction for your slope. I'll let Coach Ramsey tell you about these.
Whoa.
2x minus 3.
Y equals 2x minus 3. So it's already in slope-intercept form. We can still graph it, but what looks different? Mr. Gregg kind of hinted at it. You can see there's not necessarily a rise over run, or at least that we can't see, right? But we'll talk about that in just a second. Let's start with what we know for sure. Let's look at our y-intercept. In this case, it's a negative 3, right? The number that's all by itself. So my y-intercept, we're going to start here on our y-axis, 1, 2, 3, at negative 3, and plot our first point, our initial amount. Now we got to find the rest of the points. So what can we use? Well, we're definitely going to use this too, but hopefully you guys, are kind of maybe starting to figure out that there's understood to be a imaginary 1 underneath the 2. So technically, that's a 2 over 1. So our rise over run is 2 over 1. We know it's positive, so we know it's from left to right, it's going upwards, right? So let's make our next point. We're going to go up to right 1, up to right 1, up to right 1. We can keep on going, right? Could we also go down? Yeah, we could go down 2 and left 1 because like Mr. Gregg just said, a negative and a negative makes a positive, right? So there is our line. Right? You guys will probably start to notice the higher this number is, if it's a whole number, the more steep our line's going to be. Right? Let's try another one.
Big roll. Alright, next example. You follow along with us. Some of you may have already picked up on it.
Some of you guys are probably already pros.
Negative 4x plus 1.
Ooh.
Alright, my y-intercept is not with the variable. So it's just the 1. So I'm going to start at positive 1 here on the y-axis, which goes up and down. For I park my car. That's a negative 4. Again, like he said, over a positive 1. Remember, just the top's going to be negative. So from here, we're going down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and right 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, and another one. That's in my way, but I can do the same thing the other way. And there we go. Yahtzee. So next one, try this one as fast as you can. Pause it if you need to.
He's about to right and click pause, give it a try.
3x plus 2. Yeah, you've had plenty of time to do it. Now,
Surely you guys got that done.
hopefully you started right here. All right, good job. If you didn't, you tried. Good job. 3 over 1, 1, 2, 3, 1. No trace. And did I miscount? I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 1. So that's something else that I see happen occasionally, and I just did it myself. So if I'm counting from here, each time your finger moves to a new line, that's when I would count. So I'd go 1, 2, 3, then 1. So I've seen that some students get confused on counting. So hopefully that helps you. All right, these next ones, they might confuse you a little bit. That's why we're writing them and going over them up here, because we see these as common things students may do wrong. And yes, I am done. That's all I'm writing.
But where's the y-intercept? Where's the other number? Right? That's probably what you guys are thinking. Is there a y-intercept? Does this mean there's not a y-intercept? What do you think? So we have y equals 2x, plus or minus, there's nothing there, right? Here's where we get confused. There is still a y-intercept. If there's not a number there, in this case, y equals just 2x, our y-intercept is 0. What's that point we call right here? Do you guys know what it's called? Hopefully you know. It's called the origin. Just kind of a tidbit of information there. Our y-intercept is 0. So it does cross the y-axis. It crosses at the origin at 0, right? We still are going to make the rest of our points the same way. Hopefully you guys have already maybe remembered that there's technically a positive 1 underneath the 2. It's a positive slope, so we know that from left to right it's going upwards, right? So I'm going to go up 2, right 1, up 2, right 1. I could keep on going. And yes, also, you could go down 2, 1, 2, and left 1, right? We can connect our dots. So, again, just because there's not another number over here doesn't necessarily mean there's not a y-intercept, especially because, you guys will see it a little bit later, but we do have a slope, 2x. Our slope is a positive 2, right?
Right.
Let's look at another one.
Bam. Try this on your own. See if you can get it right. You should.
You can do it.
Well, they're adding nothing, so that means I must have nothing, so I'm going to start at 0. And it works, because remember, these are like functions. If I plug in 0 for x, what's 0 times 1/3? 0. So y would then equal 0, which is the smiley face-ish, or owl face, or origin. So if you plug it in, that's another way to remember it. You can plug in 0. So from here, we should go up 1 and right 3, or down 1 and left 3. And it's a flatter line. If your value here, the slope, if it's less than 1, it's going to be more of a flat line. If it's greater than 1, it's going to be steeper. It's going to have a higher change rate. Alright. Skip that one. Alright, we're going to confuse you, and the pro over there is going to get this one.
Whoa. There's no numbers there.
2 letters.
What do we do? Maybe you guys are starting to understand. We're not plussing or minusing anything, but there's still going to be a y-intercept, right? Y-intercept is 0, or the origin. But here's where you might be getting confused. There's not a number there. What do I do? What is it that we say if there's not a number written there? What's technically there? Well, that x is positive, so technically there is a positive 1. So our slope, our rate, is a positive 1. We also learned, or been talking about, there's also understood to be a positive 1 underneath whatever number's here, if it's a whole number. So technically it's a 1 over 1. That's our slope, right? So I can rise 1 and run to the right 1, up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1, just kind of keep on going. I could also have went down and left because that still keeps it a positive line, right? So let me connect the dots here.
Connect the dots.
Get it?
Got it good.
Get the reference? So y equals x, or technically y equals 1x. Y equals 1 over 1x. However you want to think about it, that helps you remember. Is a positive slope with a 0 y-intercept, and it's up 1, right 1. That's how you make your points. Right?
Like a Judy chop, but upwards. Judy chop, Judy uppercut.
And you might be thinking, if this was a y equals negative x, we would solve it the same way, but the line would be going the opposite direction, right? Hopefully you're starting to make those comparisons.
My hat's kind of stuck on my head right now. Childproof or something. So this next two are kind of weird as well. I'll get these. So I'll kind of discuss a function here a little bit too.
Whoa.
Alright, that's y equals 5. Normally there's an x in there too, but there might not always be. So this is a statement saying y is always 5. So how do I graph that? Well, here's my y-axis. Where is positive 5 at? Over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, what this is telling me, this line that I draw, the y value is always going to be 5. Alright, trying to get this off. That's a hot hat. So what kind of line, or what's another point I could draw up here where the y value is 5? Well, if I put one here, is that y value 5? No, it's 3. I can't use that point. Well, if I put one beside it here, is the y value still 5? Yeah. So when you get y equals a number, it's really just going to be a horizontal line that goes through y equals 5.
Think about it. All the y's are 5. They're all 5. So flat horizontal line.
And there's no x value in here to change it any, so y is always going to be 5 no matter what x is. So let's do the opposite of this. If x is negative 3, what should that look like? Well, if y was horizontal, x equals a number should be a vertical line at negative 3 here. So where's another point where x is negative 3? Here, or here, or here. So that's just going to be a vertical line. X is negative 3. And we've now covered pretty much all your examples, everything that could throw you a loop. So we're going to do 5 examples up here. I'm just going to write them up here and then graph them real quick. If you want to try it before us, you can pause the video. So we're going to fly through this. Y equals negative x minus 1. Down 1 over 1. And bam.
Again, hopefully you guys are pausing the video when you write it up there, trying it on your own, then checking yourself. That's how we learn. It's okay to mess up. Click. All right, let's see how you did.
Yahtzee.
Ooh, give that one a try. We'll see how you did. And it's okay if your line was longer.
Mine goes on forever, though. I got arrows. To the left.
X equals 7.
X is 7 and... One of those traces. Bam. Yeah, mine's longer now. What are you going to do about that?
And it's okay if your line was shorter, like he said, as long as you have arrows.
I can't win. Alright, last example. It is negative 5 thirds x plus 7. 7, 5, 6, 7. Negative slopes. Count to make it 5, 3, 5, 1, 2, 3. 5, 1, 2, 3. And we can continue forever in this direction. Graphing. Alright, that is it today. It's just linear graphing from slope intercept form. Next video will be standard form and some other forms. Go Lady Red!